Hello, everyone. So, welcome to this month's webinar with Dr. Shayne Morris. It's May. Today will be focused around Alimentum Labs and protocoling, how we've been using these in people's practice. And as a representative, I've probably talked to a lot of you about utilizing these protocols. And I think most of you are very excited about the results that you've been getting from these so far. Before we get started, I'll go through a little bit of housekeeping because we have been working on some exciting things since the last time we have talked. Let me share my screen with you. So first things first is we've been working on content. So what we've done is we've went in and created social media accounts that we'll be working on going forward. You won't see too many posts in there right now because we did just create it, but we will have Instagram, Facebook, YouTube for videos and content and stuff like that. So throughout the end of this week here and the upcoming months, we're going to start sending you guys the links to these social media so you guys can join those and be able to keep updated with us as we go through our process of releasing these new products, these new protocols, all this groundbreaking stuff. And I know a lot of you are already in this too. We have a Google Drive. Most of the stuff that we've so far created are in here. The price sheets, we have a replacement guide for those of you who are using the old systemic formulas biocell lines. We have the replacements in here as well so that you can know which ones are, the correlative ones that you can use in replacement of. So you can go back and forth on that. And then we do have a mini protocol guide as well that is a graph that has to do with being able to throw down a really quick protocol for somebody who has like a complication of some sort. It just is a really quick reference guide to say, hey, here's this health condition that they're dealing with. And then you'll go down that line and you'll be able to tell which products to use for that. So that's in that drive. Shayne will go through more of this kind of stuff a lot deeper as well. I mean, the man formulated it, so he knows how to throw these together. So he'll give you guys the really deep dive on that. And then I did want to let you know too, for being here for this webinar, you'll actually be able to utilize a buy 5, get 1 free discount on the Alimentum products. And so to do that, you can reach out to your representative. If I'm your rep, you can call me. I have an assistant that you can reach out to, or the customer service team can take these orders for you too. And that's the 1-800 number. It's 1-800-445-4647. And then just hit extension 1 and that'll go to the customer service team so you guys can take this order. Just mention the code here. The May Alimentum will be the code. And so up on there is a chat and a Q&A in here too. So Shayne is going to be able to see what you guys are saying in the chat. So don't be scared to throw on some questions down there to let him know, because he'll be able to look at that and give you guys updates on the questions that you're asking. And if we don't get to your question, we will answer them. Like, we're going to get to every single question that's here and we'll send it to you later as we get to them, because we'll be able to get through them pretty quickly and get them back to you for that. But I'm going to turn it over to Shayne now so that he can give you guys the exciting news and the education for protocoling here.
So welcome, everybody. I'm super excited again to review some of the things that we're doing. In fact, I believe that we're going to be doing a lot of these types of webinars. We'll try to keep them shorter, pile in what we need to, and then just know that we will continue to level up every time so that we can help you generate the understanding you need, the clinical implementation styles you need, so that we can address from the clinician's perspective how to use these products and what makes them different from others. And I do have a bunch of questions that we asked you guys to submit early. What I'm going to do, instead of going through each one individually, what I'll end up doing is lumping some of these together, which means at the end of this, if you didn't get a very specific answer, then please reach out, because a lot of these are going to be a generic approach that can be fine-tuned based on the particular style. And I'll get into a little bit more of that later. First and foremost, I want to remind everybody that what we've done here and what we've been able to do here is combine the systemic formulas and the Alimentum formulas. And they become a really amazing combination, because the systemic formulas are what we consider very herbalomic in nature. That's just a term that we use to describe how herbs impact our health, along with other nutritional components, obviously. And we're really joining them symbiotically marrying them essentially with these Alimentum formulas. And what the Alimentum formulas are, for those of you that have been with us for a while, or even if you're new, we've had over the last 15 years a combination of what we call cellular formulas as well as these biome formulas. And biome formulas tend to center around organisms like our microbiome. And it's a term that you've probably heard now, not only with us, and we kind of launched our microbiome formulas back in would have been 2012. So we've really been ahead of the curve. However, we've spent a lot of time really refining and perfecting the research side of things. And so in the meantime, between that period of time, early, 2010, 11 till now, what we've been doing is really putting our foot forward on the research end of things, as well as doing more clinical work. In fact, we have some unique data to share with you guys over time regarding how, for example, our immunogenic influences immune cells directly, how our metabobiomic and the immune biomic influence the immune system directly as well. So we've really gathered some amazing data for you all. And this is clinical data. This isn't just laboratory data. These are driven by the need from the clinical standpoint. And that kind of reminds me that we ventured into this biome and genetic because we knew that the cells needed a particular, really a designer form of cellular nutrients. Furthermore, the microbiome needed the same thing. There is this really important aspect of our health that up until recently was being completely ignored. In fact, it wasn't even being ignored. Many of our protocols and procedures and our lifestyle was reversing what we were trying to do positively with patients. For example, any types of medicines or the types of diets that we'd venture to create a positive benefit in many ways were destroying essential microbiological and or cellular function. Therefore, we spent a lot of time looking deeply at how Alimentum products, meaning products that are designed around the cell and around the microbiome, could take us to the next level. And at any time during the protocoling phase, for you in your offices and even when you communicate with us, they can be joined. If we're working on a protocol that is designed around cognitive function, we're going to immediately look at our neurogenic, neurobiomic, and neurosuperfood, but we can add to that things like the detox process, so detoxigenic, as well as B-brain or number one. So there's a really beautiful way to combine these products into a much more powerful system than has ever been attempted before. And it's not new. I think, as Matt mentioned, we've spent many, many years. The cellulars have been around since mid 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in there. And we've accumulated a lot of data. So what we've done with the Genix, and I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to repeat myself. What we've done with the Genix is we've upgraded those formulas. They're still the same cellular centric formulas. And they focus on not only the cell itself, but even organelles inside the cell, like the mitochondria, the Golgi apparatus, the lysozymes, the nucleus, epigenetics, and so forth. We've essentially taken what we've learned over the last decade and improved those formulas. So they're the cellulars plus the new research that we've done in the meantime. And we've done a lot of DNA sequencing in the process, which is why we name them Genix, because we want them to be a very personalized journey for both the clinician and the patient. The eubiomic formulas, on the other hand, are focused entirely on the microbiota, both the microbiota as well as what we feed the microbiota. And those are all going to be called superfoods. And we've tried to make it simple by essentially naming these, anything with biomic in it is going to be related to the microbiota. Anything with the word superfood in it is going to be nutrition for the microbiome first, and then, of course, the human cells second. And then, of course, all the genic formulas are designed around cellular health, cellular improvement, chronic issues related to cellular dysfunction, whether that, again, be mitochondria or membranes, toxic relationships as well. The more toxins we've ingested or exposed to, we now have an improved protocol for detoxification. And then at any time, we can bolt onto that. We can take as an accessory or even as a primary, the original systemic formulas. Always keep in mind they can be used in conjunction or they can be used in isolation. We can use a reductionist approach originally, and then we can use a comprehensive approach as we navigate each and every protocol. These are the tools that we're now providing, and that's where my excitement comes from, because never before have I been able to bring everything to the table at once. And again, one of these days, I encourage you to come visit. We've built so much around this, the laboratory structures, the scientists, the clinicians. We've spent so much time to bring all of this to you to address what I've been watching over the last 3 decades, these chronic issues that keep plaguing us are a consequence of our environment, of our choices, of our medicines, and we're not reversing them if we don't have the right tools. And that's really why now we have systemic as well as Alimentum formulas, because together they're a much, much more powerful clinical tool than anything prior. And they integrate beautifully with any diet system. They integrate beautifully with lifestyle changes. There's just no area that we haven't covered when we brought these to bear on you guys to use in your clinics. The thing about the Genix and the Alimentum that makes them different, and how I want you guys to associate them slightly differently from the traditional systemic formulas. In fact, I want you to associate them differently than anything that's currently in the marketplace clinically, because they are like nothing else that's out there. And this is a powerful message, because when we've gone through the systems, gone through studying the microbiota and, of course, the cellular functionality, we've looked at all of the aspects that influence chronic illness, as well as rebuilding cells, rebuilding microbiota, and in the end, reversing issues. This is key to what we've done. And if you go to the Alimentum or Systemic website, and we're only selling off the Systemic website, we have an Alimentum there just because we're building it, and that's going to be forthcoming, exciting news. We're building a lot of these tools for you, but in terms of the concept behind this is it integrates with whether you use muscle testing, whether you use blood labs, whether you use the DNA testing that we have now bringing to the process here at Systemic Formulas and Alimentum. These are all tools that can be connected back to the Alimentum formulas. So we're not only designing them around their functionality, but we're also designing them around the tools that allow us to understand what's going on inside people, inside their cells, inside their microbiota. And these are all being brought to you throughout our entire process. So that being said, let's talk about protocoling, because it is a tough thing to do with all of this new knowledge. I want to try to simplify some of the things that encompass each of these groups of formulations, both the systemic and the Alimentum. So for example, let's talk about a parasite or a pathogen. We can look at fungi, bacterial, or parasitic, for example. And where we start there is, first and foremost, the strongest tool we have regarding any pathogenic system or pathogenic influence is we have our immune system. We also have our microbiota. So we always begin there. We need to start off with what we call the bioclears. The bioclears are essentially the killers in our arsenal. And you can partner them up with VRMs or with number 3 or number 4, if you so choose. But the bioclears were designed specifically around their clinical ability to target pathogenic organisms and across the board. And in fact, I encourage you to look at some of the ingredients. For example, we have monolaurin for fungi. We have caprylic acid. We have things like methane killing compounds, sorry. We have artemisinin, which targets parasites, and so on. And they're at doses that are relatively high. So as part of the protocol, we start with clear 1 and clear 2. We also then add to that, at the same time, you can add in Terra eubiomic and Terra superfood. The reason for that is because Terra biomic are spore-forming bacteria. They are not inhabitants. They actually can go through and compete very effectively against invading pathogens. They're very effective at that. And they're not limited by the BioClears as we're taking the BioClear and the Terra together. The Terra superfood then becomes the tool to help feed the organisms that we're ultimately going to regrow after the killing phase. Now, in terms of the killing phase here, the reduction phase of these organisms, we need to be cognizant of the fact that it's very, very concentrated. The BioClears are a concentrated formulation. Therefore, we oftentimes, for sensitive people, we just follow the dosing on the label, and that allows for things to happen naturally. And you monitor them as a clinician to make sure they're not feeling incredibly uncomfortable. They're not exhibiting symptoms that are making them feel worse as they're doing this phase. However, if we come across more aggressive situations, which we've actually had recently clinically, where we've had some organisms like parasites that are deeply, they've deeply embedded themselves in our bodies, we up that dosing. The dosing goes from the baseline to a higher dose. And again, they're monitored carefully. However, that increased dose creates a much more aggressive approach to something like a parasite or a fungal and oftentimes other bacterial organisms. So we change the dosing based on how aggressive this particular pathogen is. And we love to do that because we don't want to prolong the process. So in some cases, we do 10 days, we check in, we do another day, 10 days, we check in, we do a last 10 days, check in. For those people that have an aggressive situation, that first 10 days is twice the dose. Therefore, we've accomplished 2/3 of our protocol in the bottle in the first 10 days. And then we move on, we do the next 5, check in again, and we may have to repeat it. There hasn't been very many cases. It's rare that we have to go through more than 2 rounds of the clears. Now, the Terra can continue on beyond that. Once we have succeeded in eradicating the unwanted organisms, we then bring in the Terra, and then we follow that by the nutrient profiling. So we follow that by things like immunogenic, immunobiomic, and immunosuperfood, because now we want to rebuild the biome as well as the cellular immunity. We bring that in the second phase. And we actually have a protocol, without going into too much detail, that will take you out the rest of the way. We can take you out through neurobiomic, neurogenetic, and neurosuperfood. And you'll notice that we have these amazing names where we've named them so that you can, at least at a first glance, you can say, okay, these products are called neuro because they're designed around neurological. Immuno is designed around immunological. Skin, metabolic, etc. We've tried to keep things as simple as possible. And the genic is around the cell and the biomic is around the bugs. These are things that allow us to guide our patients through this without too much complexity. But the formulations themselves are extremely complex. And we are doing that for a reason, because we've studied what needs to happen to reverse these conditions. So clinically, they're very, very powerful beyond anything else that's out there. So that's what we're excited about. Now, next, if we want to tackle something like, let me just grab my list for you guys, that applies to the initial phase of our pathogen purge, for example. And then we can continue it out. And that's a really straightforward protocol. And again, we adjust dosing and we adjust subtle things when we're tackling specific pathogens. And we're certainly here to help you with those clinical specificities at any time. Do we want to deal with, let's say, skin? So if we take a pathogen or even a toxin that has been impacting our skin, whether it be eczema, dermatitis, psoriasis, these all have an immunological basis. So oftentimes, if you have that patient that has skin rashes, lesions, otherwise we call them dermatitises, we start again with either a clearing, a purge, or a detoxification. So you can think of this as the starting point depends on where we think the source of these things are. If their source happens to be bacteriological or parasitic or viral, many people that went through and dealt with the SARS virus, they ended up with neurological as well as skin issues. So we know the source of that is going to be related to a pathogen. The converse to that is if we know that someone has been exposed either chronically or acutely to toxins, we start with what we call the detox process. And we have detoxigenic, bindgenic, we have mucosagenic, and each of these is where we begin the phase. As we work from step 1 to step 2, we then start introducing the dermas, the skin biomic, as well as collagen to start rebuilding not only the skin biome, but reinvigorating the immune system, which contributes to a skin rash. And these, by the way, are becoming incredibly prevalent in patients everywhere. We're seeing skin issues becoming very, very challenging across the board. And because of that, we've spent quite a bit of time and from phase 1 to phase 2, we need to start personalizing it for them. So depending on the type of skin rash, and certainly what I've asked doctors to do and clinicians send me a picture of it so that we can start to really understand the next phase of approach. If we start with the detox or if we start with a pathogen, the next level needs to be more personalized. And that's, again, why we're here. We're here to really help you personalize these each and every patient as much as possible. Some of the other questions that we can look at, a lot of the genetic information that we've been working with, we're going to be able to guide you through your genetic testing that will be available through us. So we have 2 geneticists that will be able to help you through it, as well as trainings that the reps have been doing. For example, Matt, they've been learning a lot about the genetic implications of nutrition. So that's pretty exciting as well. And we're going to bring that to you guys shortly, actually, in less than just a few days. So that's pretty exciting for you all. The prebiotics and probiotics. So I mentioned that the probiotics are all under the name eubiomic. And the prefix to that is going to dictate what they've been designed around clinically. So for example, neurobiomic is going to be around the neurological benefits of probiotics, excuse me. The skin biomic is around skin, immune, and so on. That should simplify it for many of you. But I want you to keep in mind that diversity in the microbiome is the main goal at the end of this. And there's going to be many more educational bits that help us navigate why our biome is so central to our health. Because as the name implies, the biome affects every body system. And there's 2 factors to getting you back to diversity. One is the organisms themselves. And the second aspect to that are what we call the superfoods or the prebiotics. If we are not feeding these organisms, we are not allowing them to recolonize, create the ecology that they live in that then offers us all of the benefits of these trillions of organisms. It doesn't take much. As a terrible example, but it happens all the time, when someone starts to choose a mono diet where they've really tried to reduce the number of things, which has its benefits in the short term. For example, you do an elimination diet. What you find is you get the benefit from a cellular standpoint or even a metabolic standpoint, because in that journey, you've cut out all of these ultra processed foods, which without question contributes to metabolic issues and microbiological issues, without a doubt. We know that for a fact. The data stands as it is. However, we only wanted to use this tool, these dietary interventions, as a starting point. Again, like anything else, we start with a process where we want to eliminate the problematic systems by eliminating these processed foods, having a simple diet, reduce inflammatory food and molecules making it in there. But then we need to slowly start rebuilding back to where we need to be. And it takes very little time to crash that system. For example, with your microbiota, when we go on a very specific diet, it only takes 3 days for those microbiota to start to adapt. Once they've adapted, you then slowly go through the other phases, building back the complexity. And it's that complexity where we bring in more superfoods, we bring in more genic formulas, we bring in more systemic herbal formulas, and each of those will start to rebuild not only the microbiota, but cellular processes as well as tissue level health, whether it be the liver, the heart, the brain, and so on. So it really is a fun little journey to protocol from, starting with a clean slate, getting a lot of patients down to a basic level, both dietary and supplementary, but then build them back through the journey. And then they have to maintain it. And there is a maintenance factor that we build in to these protocols that as you guys learn from us and as we keep educating you, you'll see that this maintenance factor is critical, because if someone stops doing any one of these arms of help, if they start to digress in their diet, it will revert within 3 days back to an unhealthy microbiota is the first thing to go, and then your cells will follow suit later. So this is really powerful information and tools that we can bring to you and help you navigate all this. Now, as another look at information and protocoling, we have what we call unique organisms and unique molecules in our Alimentum line. Now, the systemic line has what we call a vast knowledge of ethnobotanical medicine built into it, because a lot of those formulas were designed around more ancient ethnobotanical knowledge, which is brilliant. We love that. I mean, that's what got me into this world over 30 years ago. It's absolutely amazing, which is why we are excited about the systemic formulas. But all of the information we've been able to glean from what's happening to us and our patients in our society right now in industrialized countries, the Alimentum formulas contain what I consider more unique and proprietary ingredients. And now, we don't use the term proprietary to hide ingredients or to not allow you to ask where and why and how we got them. For example, our vitamins are all organic. And if you look at what we used to call spectra is now becoming vitogenic, these are not only organic, they're all plant-based vitamins. They are literally coming from their natural source. They've not been refined. They've not been purified. They are coming from the plants that produce high levels of vitamins. And that entire formulation is organic and plant-based, because there are certain plants that make a lot of these really amazing vitamins. These are the kinds of choices we've made over the last decade. The other vitamins, what we call biologically available vitamins in our methylgenic, in our cellgenic, in our energenic, these have been modified by organisms to become more bioavailable. For example, methyl tetrahydrofolate as opposed to folic acid. We're offering these much more bioactive and bioavailable vitamins, minerals, plant matrices, and so on. That's part of the upgrades that we're doing, and we're doing upgrades both from a clinical standpoint, which is dosing, as well as an ingredient standpoint, as people have understood what's happening in the mitochondria better, what's happening on the cell membranes more selectively and efficiently. This is the research that we've been contributing to, as well as being involved in the groups that we now have associations with. And then finally, when it comes to the probiotics and the prebiotic protocoling, where we differ entirely from anybody else out in the world, is we have what we call next generation probiotics, and the superfoods associated with those are what we call next generation prebiotics. And each of these is unique, and they were developed under amazing intellectual people from academia as well as in our own staff. We have organisms like Akkermansia. One of the questions that came to me is, what is my thoughts surrounding Akkermansia? And Akkermansia is one of these organisms that we should inherit at birth. We should inherit this from mom. And it's part of the colonizers of our mucus lining in our colon. What it does is it is a really effective organism at dictating part of our immune system, but even more importantly, it can set the tone for part of our metabolism. So when people have the right amount of Akkermansia in their colon, they metabolize differently from people that might already be suffering with obesity or high weight issues. And there is a distinct difference. Now, can you have too much Akkermansia? Yeah, there is some evidence that if you overdo Akkermansia and you're not feeding Akkermansia with the right superfoods. Now, this is critical. This is why I'm so passionate about the idea of having the probiotic and the superfood prebiotic being used simultaneously in your protocol, because any one of these organisms, they have to feed, and if you don't feed them properly, they will start eating either your own mucous membranes, which is what Akkermansia can do, or if you're not feeding them the proper plant-based nutrients, they will leave the body and they will become an extinct organism within that person. And these extinction events are very, very dangerous, and we're not even aware of how many exist, although we do know that many exist. I'm missing organism. I'm working really hard to bring mine back. And I can tell you right now, all of your patients are missing critical organisms because of the life we live here in industrialized countries. And especially young people that received multiple rounds of antibiotics, that data is clear. They're missing healthy bacteria. We've got to bring those back, but they won't stay unless you feed them. So in the case of Akkermansia, if you're not feeding them the appropriate food sources, they're going to start eating the mucus lining in the colon. And as that lining depletes, we then suffer what we call inflammatory issues. And those can be as extreme as IBS, IBD, Crohn's, or as mild as constant inflammation when we eat, inflammation when we have bowel movements. It starts to restrict our food choices because we then associate this inflammation with what we ate earlier. Even if it was a wonderful, complex meal of fibers, when you don't feed these properly, they can really go sideways on us and create a lot of issues. That's why this journey is so important for us to begin with a clean slate in our protocoling and phase in the complexity. And that's really how we're guiding people down this path, both supplementary, lifestyle, and diet. And these three factors are important to bring every patient back to where they can be. And we do it here. I mean, Matt can speak to it. I can speak to it. We have reset our thinking regarding how to get us back to optimal health. Those are some of the fundamental generic protocoling information I wanted to put out there because I expect a lot of questions, specificity, case studies. We've got a lot of case studies to talk about. We've gone through a number of skin case studies, and what I can tell you is the starting point's all the same with that cleaning everything out, but subsequent phases of our protocoling becomes more specific to the client, which is why I can't just give you one for psoriasis, one for eczema, one for acne. They all vary subtly, and so I have to do those individually, or Matt, or any of the other people here. But we can, and we will do that for you. That's an important aspect. And let me check out some of the questions over here on the right so that I can answer these. So acne issues, yeah, we have again, I just mentioned that. It's a different approach. We have what we call Cutibacterium acnes. We're regrowing it right now. So for those of you that are waiting to buy that, it will be here shortly. We grow that fresh. I mean, that is an in-house product where it's a phage. I don't have time to go into phage right now, but it targets one of the bacteria that inflame our pores in our skin. It's called Cutibacterium acnes. So that is one of the tools. So we would alter the diet. We would start with a simplicity of BioClears, Terra, and then on the third phase, second phase, excuse me, we would start introducing Skin Biomic. We would stay on the Terra superfood, and we would add in the acne phage, the Derma Virome is what it's called, Dermavirome. And we might even add some topical cleanses where we use Biogenic as a mask, and then we mix that with AO to create the mask. So you have a combination of AO and the Biogenic to create mud masks every night to remove toxins. And that's a very unique approach to acne that I wouldn't always do for the type of eczema someone might have, although I may. Oftentimes there's overlap, but it is very, very uniquely designed. And that's kind of one of our hallmarks of excitement. Yeah, Whole Foods, let's talk on that. So the vitamin I talked about, the Vitagenic, which used to be Spectra, that entire formula is Whole Foods. We're using Whole Foods in our metabos. We're using Whole Foods in some of the, in the superfoods. These are all Whole Foods. They tend to be in the Terra, the entire formulation is Whole Foods. In the immune superfood, neuro superfood, these are actually components of the Whole Foods because we really wanted to concentrate what we call the microbiome friendly components. And you'll see those on the label as xylo-oligosaccharides, mano-oligosaccharides, oftentimes much less, but we do use fructo-oligosaccharides. These tend to be whole foods, but we've removed the cellulose. The cellulose is the part of the plant that we can't digest. We've left it in all of the Terra, but what we've added to Terra is the enzymes that will help your body digest them because you don't have the capability of digesting whole foods and breaking out the cellulose to release all the nutrients. So we've taken that in consideration, but we use a ton of whole foods in all of our formulations. And there's more coming. I want you guys to remember that we have enough for protocoling, but we are bringing out a new epigenetic formula, cutting edge. No one's doing it. It comes out of research done in the Sinclair lab as well as another lab in Japan. We're bringing out a new enzyme, and I think Enzogenic, I think it might be out, but that is ultra complex enzymatic formulas. It has every enzyme to break down all your proteins, your toxins, your plant matrices, mushroom matrices, to release all of the good stuff into both the microbiota as well as into the bloodstream in your body to really rejuvenate the cells. And that's called Enzogenic. So we are bringing new things that give you the tools for people that struggle, let's say just from a GI standpoint. Enzogenic is an enormous benefit to the gluten sensitivity, other sensitivities, as well as lactose and so on, that the enzymes are there. So when they're taken with meals, it smooths that whole process down for both your microbiota as well as your gastrointestinal functionality, uptake, sensitivities, inflammatory responses, and so on. Even if they have histamine responses, we're reducing all of those on the side of our enzyme breakdown that we just don't have the capability of doing internally. We only make a handful of enzymes. Let's see. So there's a really good one here on rosacea. I really want that practitioner to get back with me because it's a complex one, and there's actually a mite that is involved, and it oftentimes is a bacterium that lives with the mite. So there's a few different approaches to that. I could go on the rest of this time to deal with it. So please reach out, and we do have a rosacea protocol. How do we know if there's missing organisms? It's a great question. I can tell you that based on what we call, I want to call them genome-wide or microbiological wide genetic studies, that in industrialized countries, so I'm going to pick on United States, Western Europe, Asia, parts of South America, parts of Africa, where we've really moved into more of an industrialized behavior. And urban centers, by the way, really urban city centers, they lack so many organisms. So there's been a number of groups throughout the world, really, and many in the United States that are microbiome specialists that have demonstrated that we are missing hundreds of microbes compared to going to rural areas of Nepal, of parts of South America in the Andes, parts of Amazon, the Andes, parts of Asia, where they just haven't been impacted by the industrial machinery, meaning the way we dose our antibiotics, the way we are exposed to toxins, whether they be forever toxins or pesticides, PCBs, glyphosate is a good example. These things have knocked down our microbiota. And of course, your body's trying to adapt and the microbes are trying to adapt. But when you do a direct comparison through stool testing, you see these missing microbes. And we really don't know all of them. I should be clear that we're looking at the ones we do know about, but there are many, many more that we haven't even discovered that are missing yet. But that is forthcoming. We've probably accomplished about 5% of the research that needs to happen in the microbiota space, but we're now part of that journey here at Alimentum. We are working towards those ends to see what new things are coming and how we can address them. But that's how we do it. We look at big populations and then understand what microbes are missing. And that's really the easiest way. Even if we don't know what they do yet, we are learning about what they do. Akkermansia is a good example. We know more about what that does. We know more about what some of the bifidos do or some of the corynebacteria do. We're learning these things as we go. And to date, the formulations that I have are really around the research that we do know, and we're adding to that research on a weekly, monthly basis. We've got some more publications coming out that we can give you guys. We already have one that's been peer-reviewed and published, and we're getting more that we'd be glad to supply you with them. These are all part of this amazing journey that I want all of you to take with us clinically, because not many people are doing it. On the weight one, someone just asked about weight products. So right now we have things like collagen and metabolic shakes, as well as the detox system that we've been utilizing for many years. And we have a new metabolic biomic and metabolic superfood coming out. It's actually on order in terms of getting it produced, getting all my microbes being made by the proprietary lab. That is forthcoming. So we should see that in the next month or so. And I'll try to have your salespeople keep you up to speed with that. But it has all the organisms that we've to date discovered that are metabolically beneficial, as well as the superfoods that feed those organisms. That's really exciting. And one of those is we have a couple of strains of Akkermansia in that product, believe it or not, as well as other unique organisms. And then you ask yourself, or I ask myself, how do we formulate around what we know from research, what we can glean from colleagues in academia, and then we go through a whole battery of tests to really grow and study them, study their safety, study their ability to transit our GI and colonize in our gut. And you'd be surprised how efficient these guys that are designed to live in us do. And they want to live in your intestine, in your colon. That's their home. That's where they're safe. That's where they have evolved to help us as really a passenger. But more than that, they're more like our symbiotic friends in our gut. And these are all things that we've had to research to get to this point. And because of that, we were able to file and receive many patents around these things, because we spent a lot of time, effort, and money to get here. And so we're not just taking someone else's research and using it. We are generating our own research, as well as our own intellectual property that we can share with you. We don't have to worry about disclosing our label claims or the way we do our genetics or the way we do our formulating, because we're protecting it as we go, so we can be fully transparent to all of you regarding that. We don't have any random proprietary that doesn't make sense. We want to be completely forthcoming. I take these formulas and hand them to people that are going to see their oncologist or their gastroenterologist and say, hey, if they have any questions, call me, because this is real. This is substantiated by clinical information, clinical studies. I'm open to anybody that wants to know more about it, no matter what discipline you're in, whether you're in muscle testing all the way to a surgeon. We offer up that information so that they can make the best decisions for their clients. And we're really excited about that, because that is the future of what we do. And we're excited not only to provide those things, but seeing the results. And I'm going to throw this out there because I love and I want to share with the people that help provide all these products here at Systemic and Alimentum. For those of you that get testimonials, please send them back to your sales representatives, because I want to start sharing that not only with us, but with the world. And in social media, we can do that, and we can do a better job at highlighting how much progress we've made and impact we've made, but also the impact we want to make. If we don't solve a problem for someone, we switch it up and we figure out how to solve it. We don't give up. We never give up on people. And it can be exemplified by looking at the cellulars. We started off with cellulars, and we were one of the first people to market with the Moors, the Energy to Epic. And now we've upgraded those to methylgenic, energenic, and detoxigenic. Therefore, we will adapt when we need to. We will bring to you guys a much better solution if our current solution isn't working, and we're not afraid to do that. We do that all the time. I think Moors has undergone at least 5 different alterations over the last 12 years that it's been around. So keep that in mind. Oh, timing. Yeah, let's talk about timing. In terms of our protocoling, and I've already mentioned to you guys that we like to strip things down, simplify them at the initial phase of a protocol. And that includes diet, the clearing using detox process, as well as clearing out the bad biome, which we know exists in just about everybody. Let's be honest. Every stool I've ever tested, they're missing, and they've got the wrong bugs in the wrong places. So that's a really easy starting point. Even before you have the testing, there's some educated diagnoses you can make, and that is most of your patients, if not, well, at least 90%, if not more, are going to need a biome cleanse as well as a cellular detox cleanse. That goes without saying. We're seeing that across the board. We've seen it for over a decade. We start there, then we phase in some of the speciality. We phase in kind of what we're targeting, whether it be a neurological or skin or immunological. Regardless of that, that's phase 2, where we start to phase back in the healthy biome, the healthy cellular products. But then the question is timing. And what I found, and our groups found over the last decade of all this buildup of research and clinical work, is it's very person dependent. Now, I know that's not necessarily what you want to hear. However, it's true that, similar to other aspects of our lives, some people adapt to things much more quickly and others take more time. And it has a lot to do with how long they've been struggling with it. For example, let's take the glucose insulin dynamic. Some people can, depending on how long they've been in a state of insulin resistance, they can rebound within 3 months and you can start to see the numbers changing in 3 months or less. It's oftentimes at least 3 months. But others, it's taken 24 months for people that have been insulin resistant for at least 24 months of their lives, if not longer. So it really is something that we have to look at clinically in a case-by-case basis. There are some generalities. Phase 1 and 2 are much more general with the detox and the biome. However, when we get down to phase 3 and 4 and onward, that's where we dial in for each person, because hypothyroidism, the insulin resistance, that can take many, many, many months for reversal. I mean, sadly, there's been a parasitic case where some people have a pretty rapid response, but this person was not responding. And so not only did we have to extend the protocol, we had to increase the dosing for that protocol to be more aggressive. And it can be a little bit challenging because the more aggressive approach is more uncomfortable. It can create gastric upset. Rashes can start to occur, brain fog. They feel like they're going in the wrong direction until we break through. But these are timed based on these individuals. And again, that's something that a lot of the conversations that we can have with you will dictate how that looks and dictate what their prognosis will look like over time, because some people respond and others don't. And it's not a lot different. I mean, if you have someone that's had metabolic issues and they're severely obese and they've got a lot of blood markers that are really high in inflammatory, as well as liver and kidney function, it's going to take us longer to get them back than someone that's just beginning to notice their cellular, biological, and microbiological dysfunction. And oftentimes those guys will come back much more rapidly, depending on how early it's caught. And I guess that's true for many things. Regarding that, let's jump in to see if I have anything left. And I hope I haven't been too general, but I wanted to be general enough that we were covering how we protocol, what we offer now, the differences between systemic formulas as well as Alimentum, and the synergies between them two. And then finally, let's see, one more here. So the detox phases, the prep, body, and brain. Right now, we still want to use them. They still are our fundamental system for detoxification. But over time, you'll gradually see as they progress into the new formulations, as we can introduce them without creating too many changes at once. We don't want to create too many changes for people's marketing, people's programs. We're introducing them slowly, but they are still our go-to in terms of the detoxification pathways, no doubt. So that's still happening. And then we will upgrade them in the future. During the prep, brain and body phases, like all of the other protocols that I mentioned, there will be people that might have a reoccurrence of brain fog, a reoccurrence of gastrointestinal upset, and many other symptoms. Could be rashes, the Herxheimer, et cetera. We find that in about 10% of the patients. So just be aware that some people respond differently over these detox phase or these microbiome cleaning phases. Everybody responds differently, and it is a short-lived response. And you can lower doses. I always talk about raising doses, but for people that are sensitive, it's fine to lower a dose and lengthen the protocol. So a 30-day protocol can turn into a 45-day protocol just by altering the dose a little bit. And we see that all the time. Someone did say, this is a kind of a specific one, but vitamin D levels, a lot of the vitamin levels that we've seen in blood work, certainly the range of 25 to 30, way too low. A lot of, even the RDA is going to be raised for a lot of these things in blood work. We know that, up to 100 is not a problem. And even over that, there's really been no clinical adverse reporting in those levels. But that's going to be true for many of these vitamins that we've kind of come in with a low number, and we can really raise that number. And especially as you put it in the context of all the challenges that our patients are seeing, your patients, because they're living in essentially a mild toxic environment everywhere they go. And it's unavoidable at this point in time, unless your patients pack up and move to the Andes or move to the Amazon. In many ways, it's really hard to avoid what we've created here. I'm going to spend more time on focal points, on very direct, going over each formula on video, and we're going to put those on social media for you, like YouTube, so that we can understand each formula independently. And then we can from that create protocoling videos for you all, condition-based videos. I think it's important for that. Someone wanted to know about stevia and xylitol. We don't use xylitol, although I want to tell you guys, xylitol has its strengths, and there's a time and a place, although we haven't used it yet. There's a study that a group that we work with on the microbiome did, and if you have the proper microbiota, xylitol and you can find xylitol in most fruits, by the way. It exists naturally. It actually has its benefits for your microbiota, but it has to be done appropriately, and it has to be done at appropriate levels. We still don't have it, but I can tell you there's some good data there for it. So maybe in the future, we can work with you guys to find out how to reintroduce some of these things that are naturally occurring in fruits and vegetables. What I can tell you is that the fruits and vegetables that we do use in the superfoods, you're going to find a lot of these amazing carbohydrates that you don't generally get in your diet, certainly not in a processed diet. They're there, although we don't look at all of them because some of them just pass through us, but many of them are creating a benefit because we're using the whole food. We're using the whole raspberry, the whole strawberry, the whole blackberry, blueberry. They're going to have these amazing carbohydrates there that a lot of people don't even know what they do. but I can tell you the microbiome loves these things, healthy microbiomes. You feed it to E. coli, you feed it to Candida. They don't like it so much, but your good guys really love it. And that's a critical part of what we do. Really, these are little nuggets of information that I plan on giving you formula by formula. And that's going to be exciting because I want to have more of these meetings with you leading up to a live event in the future where hundreds of us get together and just really enjoy hashing out how much power we have at our fingertips. That is my goal ultimately. I think I've covered a lot of these, and I really appreciate you guys' attention. I hope I wasn't all over the map. In the future, what I think we'll do too is start to narrow down conversations to specific protocols so that we can deal with that specifically. Thanks again.
So I'm going to take over from here. Shayne, as always, it's always amazing to hear from Shayne what he's got to say with the newest new and research and what's going on in the industry. It's kind of a pleasure to be within earshot of someone like that, because a lot of times I got a lot of personal goals that I like to reach out, and he gives me a lot of guidance on that stuff. Something I want to talk about too is you have reps, and yes, we did go over protocoling, but you guys can reach out to us directly to get this same information that you've got from Shayne. And let's say you ask a really complicated question. Let's say you say something that might be out of our scope of practice, right? We can still get those answers for you because we have experts all over this building that can get us those answers. So if you want to go through a training, I've actually been doing trainings with people like every hour on the hour for the past couple of days with my clients, whoever your rep is, right? Reach out to them. And we'll be able to do these trainings with you to let you know about what's going on in the future, because we don't have the videos and the education out yet, but we do have them made that we can tell you and say, hey, this is how we're utilizing these in the practice. We have this system here. We have this protocol system here. This is what I've seen Dr. XYZ do in their practice with this. There's multiple ways to throw this around that we can teach you how to use. Let me go ahead too, before we end this, I want to make sure that you guys have this discount code, because this is going to end tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And we're in the Mountain Standard Time. So if you're East Coast, right, it would end at 7. But this buy 5, get 1 free, make sure to do that by tomorrow by 5 Mountain Time. But other than that, just keep in touch with us. All those questions that you put up into the chat, we have all of those questions. A couple of them are actually my clients, so I can go out and reach out to them about that with the questions that you guys asked. We'll get all of those questions emailed to you, say you have those answers. And then, like I said, don't be afraid to talk to us. We want to talk to you. It's our job and we love it. So answer us, or we'll answer you, and then just keep in touch with us. If you don't know who your rep is too, just call the 1-800 number, press the number 1. That'll get you right to customer service. They can get you in contact with your rep, because we can do text, we can do phone call, we can do email, whatever mode of communication that you want to use, we can do. Okay, we'll conclude it for today, and we're going to try to do these monthly. So it was fun talking to you guys today, but we will see you on the next one. Okay, thanks for coming, guys.